Why don't some men want to provide? Now, I know we live in a world where women are independent and men are much more feminine, and they've been trained and programmed out of their instinctual nature of providing and protecting. But the biological truth is that men are wired to provide and protect for women and children, just as they always have for generations and generations. It says to us in the Bible that a man shall not be classified as a man until he is a provider. The scripture says, any man that does not provide for his own has denied the faith and is worse than a non-believer. Now, I know that a lot of my content can ruffle some feathers and be very triggering to certain types of men, particularly, even though I stand for men and am constantly teaching to depend on men and rely on men and trust in men again and heal their hearts so that they can look up to a man again, right? But it triggers and ruffles some feathers of certain types of men. And I get it. Now, I don't know very much because I'm just a Looney Tune living in a delulu, talking smack on the internet, crazy enough to believe that this thing is gonna get me anywhere, crazy enough to believe that I know anything about men or women. But I do know that the male brain and body is marinated in testosterone and is hardwired to provide and protect. You guys actually should check out my YouTube comments sometimes because they're actually very clever on there. Anyways. So why is it that some men don't want to provide? Why do you keep coming across and meeting men who are through and over and done with providing? Because I'm going to give you some of these reasons as to why it becomes a dormant gene within them, or as to why you might see all of these male podcasters screaming and roaring about why they don't want to provide anymore for women, right? But they are actually elated to be able to provide and protect. And in prehistoric times, men who could not provide and protect for their families would die out. They literally could not survive. So studies also prove to us that men produce certain hormones that cause them to feel love and bonding and trust for their families and in their ability to be able to provide and protect. So they experience this surge of love and surge of feeling powerful and confident and bonding to their loved ones when they can bring home food. In prehistoric times, resources were considered to be food, right, to their families. Now, resources in this modern time would be more so considered not just food, but, money, cars, things like just resources, external things that men are able to provide, right? Okay, now let's first understand a few of the basics. And that is one, that we as women, we cannot turn men into men. Only other men can do that. In previous generations, before women's liberation, boys were raised by their fathers and taught and led by other men to become responsible providers and protectors. And in certain tribal cultures, obviously outside of the West, there are still initiation rituals for young boys, because at about 13 to 14 years of age, a young boy, his testosterone levels surge drastically, and they become to the levels of an adult male. And so at that time, they are supposed to be, they are to be put through a series of initiations to be able to initiate them into manhood, so that they can be classified as a man and becoming a man. This is actually what they call the initiation rituals. So they are actually taken from their mothers, and they're taken from their mothers because us as women, being more of the nurturing, more emotional energy, we have a certain kind of attachment to young boys or children just in general. And so a mother's nurturing energy can interfere with a young boy becoming a man. So they're actually taken from their mothers, and their mothers cannot see them go through these very vigorous initiation processes. And so I've talked about some of these on here before, but like for some of them, like they kind of get extreme. Like some of them, they have to like put their hands into woven like gloves with bullet ants. So they're like they're being like bitten by these like fire bullet ants, and they're not allowed to like cry. They're not allowed to like take the glove off. Like, it's serious stuff. Other ones, they're like being pierced through their breast and like hung from a tree. They're not allowed to cry out. They're not allowed to make a noise or a sound during that process. And if they can complete these initiations, it's a couple of different initiations that are really pretty much extreme to today's standards, at least. If they can complete them without showing any emotional reaction, then they have initiated themselves into manhood. Certain forms of providing and protecting that I also notice from men who maybe have been in my life or are in my life, and this is a quality that I notice and also recognize as a form of being a provider, is that they, like, if they go out with a lady to a bar or a restaurant or whatever, and maybe they'll have like one or two drinks, or they choose not to drink at all, but they are the drivers, and they're like kind of the ones like letting her let loose and take care of her and make sure she gets home safe. So they're driving the whole night, making sure that they like stay below their limit of alcohol, so that way they can get behind the wheel and drive safely. And they just kind of like let her let loose. That's actually also another really valuable form of providing and protecting, and should be celebrated. So with that being said, is that they haven't been initiated into their manhood yet. And even though here in the West, obviously, we don't hang men from trees and hope that they don't cry, the initiation into manhood looks a little bit different, as they are growing up more fatherless in today's generation. They're not being led and shown how to provide and protect for their families by their fathers. They don't have that strong masculine role leadership in their life. And so they haven't really been through a series of tests in order to receive that recognition of their manhood. A series of hard, emotional tests, strenuous tests, just things that they have to be put through testing their physical strength. Obviously, I'm not talking about the extremes of piercing through their breast. But the boys today they're not having to be put through any hardships or any failures. They're just kind of given things so easily and just so effortlessly. So even though that gene is very, very dominant within him, it just hasn't been awakened or triggered in him yet because of the conditioning that he's grown up around, or the lack of masculine leadership in his life. Another reason why some men don't want to provide is because that gene is put to rest or become dormant within them because of upbringing or conditioning. So let's say, for example, that there is a young boy who's growing up in a traditional family where he has a father in the house, and maybe his father is the sole provider and taking care of the family and going to work every single day, and he's able to witness that. But maybe something happens to where their providing and protecting efforts as a young boy were received back as unappreciated, or were kind of shamed and put to rest within them. Or if the family ends up breaking apart and he no longer has the father figure in his life, and so he doesn't, it's the gene, the instinct within him is literally put to sleep for him, because he's gone away from the father, even though that was initially how he learned his role as a provider. Am I making sense here? Or if the family breaks apart, he gets the message that that's not a significant role for a man, and it's not being appreciated, because what do all of those efforts do, right? What does all of that providing effort produce in his life? Because he sees that obviously the family doesn't stay together, and that's not enough, right? So then that gene within them becomes dormant, and they just kind of lose the ability to see what good is being a provider. What good is it to be the dominant one of a family if it doesn't work out? Okay, another reason as to why some men don't want to provide is the best one, right? Social conditioning and mixed messages from modern day feminism. So obviously the mixed messaging that they are receiving from culture and from probably school, going to school, that women are independent, they want to pay for their own things, they no longer want men to open doors for them or pay for their meals at a restaurant, or they want to go 50-50 on a date. They receive these mixed messages from feminism, and then they get very confused, right? And this is true even for boys who were raised in a traditional family unit where the mom was stay at home and the father was the sole provider. This is still true. They still get conditioned out of their providing instinct because they're receiving mixed messages and they're not really sure what to do with it. They don't want to offend independent women. And maybe some of their female peers are being raised by hardworking feminists who ingrain in their young daughter's mind that they need to work hard and never depend on a man and pay for their own things, right? This is really what is being propagated to them. So the boys are getting a lot of mixed messages, and they just simply don't want to step on women's toes. Another outlet to be weary of where they're receiving their mixed messages and social conditioning is from social media, right? We live in the age of social media where we have the internet and the whole world at our fingertips. And so these young boys might get sucked into, the cultural trending topics. And a lot of that is that women are independent and don't need men to pay for anything, and that women are all whores and, never get married to a woman. Like, this is the stuff that goes viral and causes a lot of chaos on the internet. And so they receive a lot of those mixed messages and conditioning and mindsets and mentalities and belief systems. They develop all of these belief systems from not only school and what they're being taught in school, what they're being brainwashed to in school. I sound just like my daddy. But yeah, they're also receiving it from their peers and from social media and scrolling on TikTok and double tapping. They're getting all of these mixed messages. And of course, if he's a young boy, like, our brains are so malleable before the age of 25. And so we just easily adapt different belief systems that are told to us, and that's just what it is. We're easily malleable as young children, young teens, young adults, and so that's what's happening. What's so funny too is, going back to my point of their hardwiring to provide, is that I remember so vividly that my sister, so when my parents separated, my mom was with another guy, and he had a young boy, and he was like a little bit younger than my youngest sister. And so they were probably about 2 or 3 years apart. And so he was literally younger than her. And they were both like little babies. Like, I mean, they were probably, and they were younger than 10. They had to be like 6 or maybe like 5. Whatever. So anyways, he would, like, the boy, my mom's partner's son, right? He would go to, like, his mom's house for a weekend or whatever, or he would go off and do, like, things with the other side of his family, and he would always bring back money to my little sister. Like, he would bring her back resources. Like, they were really close. They got along so great. They loved each other so much because they were practically like siblings. And he would go off to his mom's side of the family and give my little sister money. He was literally giving my little sister money. Like, he was like 5 or 6. And he was literally giving her resources that was given to him. And this is just amazing. And it goes to show you how hardwired and ingrained it is in their DNA to be a provider, to bring resources to women, to be selfless, to be giving, to give up resources that they've acquired to women and children. So it's just amazing. And it just proves my point that it is that they are, it's in their DNA to do this. So it's not even to say that women are not providers. We have a masculine side. We have testosterone within us too. We are, but it's not in the brain circuitry in the same way in the female brain as it is in the male brain. Okay? It's not to the same extent. We don't have the same kind of drive to provide and protect as men do. We provide and protect in other ways, and never should we ever be providing for men. And I'm talking about men, not young boys, not our sons, not young children that need guidance and mentorship, okay? I'm talking about men, grown men. Women should never be providing for men. And I know that this ruffles some feathers because people want to just we will pull things from certain content that best fits our story and the stories that we create inside of ourselves, right? So different situations in our life, we will pull from that what best justifies the stories that we tell ourselves in our heads and what best justifies our belief systems. This is actually basic psychology, but again, I don't know anything. Okay, moving on to the next reason as to why some men don't want to provide. I mean, even my brother with our little sister, the first thing that he wants to do when he has excess money to blow is take her out or go buy her something that she wants. Or like, even for me, like he'll ask like, if he can like invest into something for me, and help me out in some kind of way in learning something, right? Like that's the first thing that he wants to do whenever he has excess resources to give. And my father's on another level, because my father would literally rather not eat. He would literally rather starve and then not offer us his food, like the food that's in front of him. He'll basically try to like shove it down our throats in offering what like his resources and his meal. Like it's like he doesn't want to eat unless he's like offered us his food thousands of times and we are certain that we don't want it and we say no and we reject it. Like he just wants to offer 1,001 times before he gets to have the pleasure of eating his meal. And I know it sounds so crazy, but this is the nature of men. Men are hardwired to be more giving and selfless of their resources. And this goes all the way back to evolutionary history in prehistoric times, when men literally had to, in order to keep their genes, to keep their genetic survival ongoing. Is that the word? Strong. Keep their genetic survival strong. That's the word. Okay. Now, moving on. So, the next reason as to why some men don't want to provide, and that is entitlement. Entitlement from women. Yep. So since we live in a world that is very, very confused, and the principles are just very, very confusing for most people, we don't know what belief systems that we should or shouldn't be attaching ourselves to. Women tend to, the women that follow their these other influencers and other speakers and stuff, and even like myself or whatever, sometimes you can create the wrong story in your head about how you are entitled for a man to provide for you. And yes, there is some truth to that, but let me try to break this down in the best way that I can. None of us are entitled to absolutely anything in life. And the blessings that we receive from God and the gifts that we receive from others, from God, things that people do for us, we are never entitled to any of it. We are supposed to be grateful for it and appreciate it as it comes, but we are never supposed to be entitled to that. And I get it that it gets really easy to fall into that entitlement energy, but the truth is that that's an energy that no one likes. No one likes that entitlement energy from anyone, man or woman. And let me tell you, there is nothing I hate more than entitlement energy. And Lord, convict me of if I ever come across as entitled, because that is never my intention, right? But I know for like firsthand that I actually have people, certain people in my life that feel very, very entitled. Very, very entitled to literally just anything. And even though the problem is with them and not me, I am very, very repelled and repulsed by any sort of entitlement. And so in that same way, you have to think that men don't want to feel entitled, or men don't want women to feel entitled to their providing, right? Because that is supposed to be received to us as a gift from them. Because the truth is that God gives us free will. God himself does not break our free will. And even though a man can't be considered a man until he is a provider, even though God says a man who does not work does not eat, even though God says these things and puts this strong purpose on a man's life to be that role, they don't have to follow it because they have free will. They don't have to follow those orders and purposes to be a provider and protector, right? We have the free will. Nobody can break our free will. So when we carry this sense of, I'm the prize, I'm entitled to you providing, it's very repulsive because it's almost like you're trying to take away someone else's free will, which cannot be infringed on because God himself doesn't infringe on it. You know, we all want to feel like all of our efforts being done are being valued and appreciated and not being received as, oh, well, you should do that because I deserve that and I'm entitled to it. And again, I get how we can easily fall into that entitlement energy, especially when you're in a marriage with a man. You know, it's just expected that you do A, B, and C. And this is not just with providing in their role, but it also has to do with, just expecting that, you're going to do the dishes at a certain time, or expecting that, the bed sheets need to be washed. Like all of these things that we feel like we're entitled to, it becomes really easy to fall into that entitlement energy, just because it's become so normal and so routine for us. And yeah, it's repelling to anyone to feel that someone else is expecting you to do A, B, and C, and it's not being received as appreciation. So to women that kind of gain this sense of, I'm the prize and I'm entitled to you providing because of all this content, that they're consuming on the internet of that ego feeding from other women, they fall into that. And what was I going to say? I don't know. I was going to bring up a good point. I don't remember. But anyways, they kind of fall into that ego feeding content. And so all the men are around saying, well, why would I want to? It just feels wrong to infringe on my free will like that, right? Because that's what our ego gets really bruised when somebody is expecting something from us and feeling this sort of entitlement that we should or have to do something. It's a very strong ego hit to us, and we just kind of feel, well, why would I want to do that? Like, now that you expect me to do it, I don't want to do it, right? I know I get like this. I get like this all the time. Oh, I remember. I was saying that when in reality, the appreciation and gratefulness that we should be feeling instead for those men who actually do see their purpose and fulfillment in their providing efforts should be even more celebrated. They should be even more appreciated because, and put on a pedestal, because it is something that is so rare now, and because it's been stripped away from masculinity. Masculinity has been so beaten down. And so that's why we should feel less entitled and more grateful for those that actually exist in that. All right, so I think this is actually the last reason that I'm going to mention for this video as to why some men don't want to provide. And this one actually hits very close to home for me, and that is because they've been burned so badly from women in their past, women in romantic relationships or not. They've been burned so badly and beaten down and emasculated and truly emotionally scarred from providing and protecting for women and children and their families, and they've gotten so burned from it. They have felt like a failure because they couldn't uphold the family unit together, or they couldn't They just couldn't feel successful in their efforts of being a provider. And so they just want to, that gene again gets put to rest. It's taking some time off. It needs to recover, like a muscle in the gym. It needs to be strengthened again and rebuilt and given the right nutrients and proteins to activate to activate that instinct once again. This one hits really close to home for me because growing up, I witnessed men who were very, very hard workers, providers of the family, and unfortunately, some of them ended up in divorce from their wives and families. And because of this, it took a really big toll on not only their providing and protecting, but their health, their sense of self-worth, their sense of purpose and fulfillment, their sense of feeling like someone needs them, because they put such a heavy weight on their role as a provider. They carry such a heavy weight of being able to take on that responsibility that they vow to when they do vow their commitments to a woman and to children. And so it's extremely sad that they go through this. But I've watched men in my family and, men that have been in my life and become very special to me, who have been through marriage and then been through divorce and have been really burned by it. And they don't know how to love again. They don't know how to heal their hearts again. They don't want to, they have a lot of, inevitable fears that comes with taking on those kinds of responsibilities again and not wanting to make those commitments, and just would rather, stay stuck in their comfort of not being more of a playboy and not being one to commit again because of how it turned out for them in the past. And too, with some of these situations that I've researched and seen for myself, is that sometimes when these men have been through divorce, they have given they've given all their assets and resources to their ex-wives, right? They've either given them 50% or they've given them 100% and decided that they would rebuild their own things up. They would rebuild their lives basically and start all over because they've done it before, they can do it again, right? That's the mentality of a provider. But and this is a great, this should be absolutely 1000% celebrated and put on a pedestal, that some of these men so willingly gave all that they had to the ex-wife, even though it didn't work out, because they didn't want to leave her with nothing. And so because they have given her everything that they had and decided to rebuild their own lives up and all of the things that they owned, maybe they had to literally rebuild their house. Maybe they literally had to move to a different state or country or whatever, whatever the situation is, they do that. And so they have to be, they're providing and protecting for other women has to be put to sleep for a little while, so that way they can rebuild their life up after a divorce. That's why either A, they will go through a period of time where they are not getting involved with another woman romantically at all, not dating, and just kind of rebuilding themselves up, or B, they are casually dating women who decide to be in more of that equal role, who don't mind paying their half and contributing financially, and paying like 50-50 on dates, or living together and helping him work hard and pay bills. Okay, let me help give a situation that can maybe help clarify. One time there was somebody very special in my life, and he was a very, very great provider. He was married, had children, and ended up getting divorced. Very hard worker, very solid and strong provider. Well, after he got divorced and he gave everything to the ex-wife and decided to rebuild himself, it really burned him, right? He was that providing instinct within him was still on for his other family members, but when it came to women as romantic partners, it was kind of he wanted to be more careful with it. So he was very much in his alpha energy in other areas of life, but when it came to women, he kind of wanted more of a masculinized woman who had her own stuff, maybe was older, more established, didn't rely too much on him being a provider, and kind of was just over and done and past the point of wanting to restart, as in doing the whole marriage thing of, husband and wife living together, and she's she's getting, half of his earnings or half of his assets or whatever. Like, he was over and done with that because he had already been through that. So he decided that he wanted a more masculinized woman who had all her own. So basically couldn't hold the container of femininity, I guess you could call it, once again, like he had before, right? Because he started out in his young years building himself and his career with a wife and a child, right? And then that was all taken from him. And so then he decided, he got wounded from it and decided that he didn't want to go through that and commit and take on those responsibilities once again for it to just fail in the end, or so he thought, right? So I hope that helps clarify when I say that they get burned by women. They get actually emotionally invested and then burned and hurt, traumatically hurt by women. And so their providing and protecting goes to sleep. And it's waiting for, it's waiting to be reactivated with, it's waiting to be reactivated again for them. Oh, wait, I actually do want to mention one more reason, too, for why I think that men don't want to provide. And this goes with every other reason that I've listed, too. But they just simply don't feel their purpose anymore. They don't feel a purpose and a need to anymore. Because maybe these guys are single. Maybe they don't have children. Maybe they're lonely. Maybe they don't have much of a social life. And this is very much what's happening, is that more people are single than ever before. We are in an epidemic of lonely single men. And this is really heart-wrenching to me. And, I have a friend too who, he's a guy and he's an older guy, and he does want to have a family. He wants to have kids, and he wants to be married. And he's definitely old enough now to where, he rightfully should want that. He's been alone for all of his life, and he does dream about that life, and he feels entrapped by the loneliness that he's encountering every single day as a single man that does not have children. And sure, absolutely, does it have anything to do with him and how he's showing up and the fact that he doesn't have male mentors to look up to or doesn't want to? Yes, of course. People are, but people are not fed this kind of information, this kind of stuff that needs to be taught to us and taught to men, especially for them to be better leaders of society. This information is very hidden, and they probably, a lot of them just don't know that they need to seek out mentorship, that they need to seek out counsel from other males. And so some men, maybe they want to be a provider, but they just simply don't have anyone to provide for, right? Like, I know that these guys, they simply don't have a family to provide for, so they figure why, like, they just don't have to. It's literally not being used. Their energy of being a provider is not being expended into, it's not being, it's not flowing and coming back to them. That energy, that energy of providing and protecting and money is not flowing to anything and then coming back to them. So does that make sense? It's simply just not being triggered because they're alone and don't feel like they have anyone to provide and protect for, right? This is honestly a huge reason as to why I get so upset and frustrated when I hear people who say that they don't, like, they feel trapped by a relationship or marriage, or that they, don't appreciate what they have. Like, I feel so heavy for both sides, but then it's like, I know those people who are literally single and lonely, and they just are dying for companionship. They're dying to build a family. They feel trapped by their lifestyle of not being able to have that. They feel lost. They feel like they have no control over finding a partner to lay down their lives to and with, and have beautiful experiences with, and build that strong family unit with. They feel like they don't even have that, and feel like they can't even manifest that for themselves. And so that's why I feel so heavy for those that truly have a strong desire in their hearts for that life and just feel hopeless in ever being able to achieve that. Okay, so anyways, I'm going to shut up. I could just go on and on and on, but I'm going to end it here. This has already been a really long video. And yeah, I thought that this was a great subject to speak about because I, like to talk about men and providing a lot here on my channel. And I hope that you found this to be helpful. And ladies and guys, if you are interested in working with me one-on-one, or have like specific relationship questions or communication, need to learn skills, whatever it is, send me an email and go in depth about your situation. Give me some more insight, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And yeah, subscribe, of course, if I haven't said that already. And I'll see you guys in the next video. I love you. Mwah.